Right, yeah, this farm's called Flaxburn Farm, and it's owned by the C.A. Clark Estate. The farm is actually owned by the Presbyterian Church Property Trustees, and it also runs as a charitable trust. So it's a well-known farm in the district and has a long history in the district. The farm comprises of about 210 hectares to 215 hectares. Of that, 30 hectares is leased. Well, when we first took over the property, it was in a pretty poor state of repair. The way of telling the boundaries was that it was ragwort from one boundary to the other, and it was a considerable worry to the neighbours who were getting all the seeds, and the farm was fencing systems and general management was in shocking condition. The farm was operating as a dairy farm, but it was the production was sitting around about 90,000 kilograms of production, and this year we're on target to achieve 200,000. The first job was to discuss with the trustees a plan, and so we set a 5-year development plan for the farm, and one of the most important things was to get this ragwort under control and to create better pasture quality. So we started with a 10% regrassing program, and we used a rotor wiper in the first year to control the long ragwort. One, they were feeding meal in the paddock, and two, they were topping the grass. They were feeding a high concentrate, high value feed to cows and cutting perfectly good grass down that wasn't being consumed by cows. So there was something wrong with the management. The stocking rate was a little bit too low, and again the pasture species wasn't right either. So one of the things we did was increase the stocking rate from about a 2.5, 2.6 stocking rate to a 3 cows per hectare. We didn't want to go too high because the Wairarapa isn't known for being one of the best dairying districts, but we also knew that coming on stream was an irrigation scheme. So in the first year we're not only controlling ragwort, we also were dealing with bulldozers tearing up the paddocks, laying huge irrigation lines, as well as coming to grips with the existing irrigation systems that were there. I brought my own herd in here and helped supervise the sale of their cows and bought some of the better cows that we could find out of the herd. We moved away from using the rotor wiper and just simply went into the paddocks during the summer with a tractor and a spray gun and just sprayed the ragwort heavily. And on the second year, 30 hectares of land came up for lease, and so we tendered for the lease and were successful. And the first year we milked 400 cows, and the second year we moved from 400 cows to 500 cows, which made a huge difference financially to the property. We began fencing off all the drains and waterways because they were actually used as water sources, and they were muddy, dirty things for cows to drink out of. And we've increased the number of troughs and the water supply. We've put a dispenser on the water supply. There was an area of native bush that behind the house and behind the homestead, that is, and over on one section of the farm, and we fenced that off in the first year because there was no point in having stock going through native bush. And the regeneration on that has been quite remarkable over the 5 years. We now have very, very strong colonies of pukakos on the farm, and what we notice out of that is also we don't seem to have very much grass grub, because my observations are that they do eat a lot of bugs. The shelter belt planning has continued. The idea is to get the crow's nest poplars up, and all the shelter belts are planted along the drains. One of the tricks why our irrigation is very suited to this land, it's not a pivot irrigation, it's long lateral irrigation, is we can focus irrigators on the dry ridges, and the silts actually retain moisture very well. So they're quite delicate soils to manage, they're very tentative. So part of the shelter belt system is one that would survive high winds, wouldn't grow on angles, and once the initial belts are up we're going to have natives and pittosporums underneath to densen the lower level of the base to stop the wind which causes the evaporation. The heavy winds that we have are quite common. We'll average a gale every month on average, and they're short and brief, but they can be destructive. So part of our plan is we always carry a contingency stack of silage for to carry us through any springs, and that's why it's important to have the extra runoff land for other stock, because when things do go wrong, they go very wrong here. Part of being aware of our sustainable farming is we talk to Balance Agronutrients, and they instigated an overseer program to look at the fertiliser and to do a nutrient budget, something I was interested in and not a lot of farmers were able to do or had the resources to do. We set about that, and we identified out of the nutrient budget that we were putting fertiliser on effluent paddocks that didn't need it. They needed lime, they were too acidic, and they're very high in potash. And so we eliminated all forms of fertiliser, including nitrogen, on these paddocks and put lime on, and to be honest, they're the best paddocks on the property. And we've mapped the farm from a digitised photo, and now all incidents can be recorded and viewed on the property in different shades and colours. There is a system installed in the shed that automatically can feed meal to each individual cow. And we find this very useful for periods where we get short pinches caused by southerlies or sudden burn-offs of grass that are unexpected. One of the things that attracted us to the Wairarapa was the wine and the antiques and the lovely scenery and things. It's something we're passionate about, and the untamed coastlines.
I do all the accounts and a lot of the financial side of it, wages, staff, and a lot of the planning for Keith. Take the kids over to Te Papa and things like that, and Keith and I try and take quite a bit of time off when we can, spend some time over there. So location-wise, I think it's really good. We love Martinborough, a grey town. We like food and wine and make the most of all of that.